the layout of the marketing activities. In the section, or there are several folders. The first will be legacy, and this was really just used for the migration of all of our leads into the database of Marketo. So this won't be used, but it is good to know that that is where our leads were first placed to give them the correct lead source. Marketing programs is where you'll be spending most of your time, as this is where we organize all of our different marketing channels and outreach programs. So some of them are static, meaning that they will just kind of stay and run in the background, and then some of them will be ones that you continually add to as more campaigns are started, such as additional email blasts or marketing events that come up. So the first section is the blog, and this will be kind of an overview, so I won't go into the details of it. But this is a program that runs in the background, like I said, so it just tracks people that are visiting the blog and adds them to the program to give it influence on opportunities that may be created. So it just lets us know if people are getting to our blog web pages, and then if they navigate elsewhere on the website from there, we consider them engaged. So it just means that we held them enough attention that they want to continue to look into Shopatron. The content channel has lots of different static programs because we have lots of different assets on the website. For example, we have all of these case studies currently on the website, and these programs track each of those assets individually to know which ones have a lot of people engaging with them. Some of the flows to kind of go through in quick overview. When people come to our website, they'll request content by filling out a form, and so this campaign makes it so that when they click submit on the form, they're given the auto-respond email, and that email has a link to the asset itself, so it's how they're able to download. The reason that we have an autoresponder email instead of allowing people to just download straight from the website is because we want to know that their email address is in fact correct. So it's just a way of making sure that we're getting leads that we can utilize further. So this program just tracks as people engage with individual content, and we have it for case studies, ebooks, features lists, info kits, any type of asset that you would find on the website. The only thing that is an asset that's not included in the content program is webinars, because we keep those in the webinar folder and they become an asset when the webinar's been held, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Direct mail is a program that we haven't used yet. Actually, did you just have these in? Okay, so this would be where you put programs where we're sending something directly to clients through the mail, and that would be like wine sends to in-funnel prospects, or sending books to clients and other people in the industry. Email blasts. This is something that we're kind of moving away from, as we want to get more into nurture programs that will serve out content dependent on the engagement of the leads, but it's sectioned into several different areas. Client emails are coming from the corporate marketing side, and they are sent obviously to clients, so you can find those segmented there. Fulfiller emails go to our fulfiller base, and usually it's to send brand launch awareness out to fulfillers to try to get them to onboard with some of our clients and grow our dealer base. Industry targeted emails, this is something that you, Justin, and Jesse have been working on, but this might grow as we find returns on it. Prospect emails, obviously this is what typically we used to use a lot, and we would just do email blasts each week, so we're kind of moving away from this, but it's good to know that that's there still. And there's still some times when we really want to send to a very specific group of people. For example, this Google email that Jessie recently sent out was only for people who had engaged with our SEO search, and so she sent them a specific email for their target. So it can be used for different targeting. Shop Advisor emails are for anybody who's registered for our newsletter, and it just contains a bunch of different content that we are trying to promote heavily. External programs is where we keep third-party programs, where we might promote one of our assets on an external website, and let people download from there directly, and we are given the leads back from the company. So, for example, RIS, third-party program, we outsourced for them to gain our leads, and they send us back an Excel, and we import it into Marketo, and we just want to track when people are engaging with that. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the meeting. I'm just kind of doing
sorry I'm late.
Oh, no problem. I'm just kind of going over what we had discussed yesterday with John, with Justin, and then we'll get into some more of the details. I do have to let you know that I have a webinar to host at 9 o'clock, so I'll probably have to jump off around 9:45. But if there's additional stuff that I'm working on with Justin, then we can record it, and then I can send it your way too.
Okay. So what time do you have to get off?
Probably around 8:45. So hopefully
8:45. Okay.
we'll be able to get through enough of it that that won't be a problem. But just to let you know.
Okay.
And at any point, feel free to jump in with questions. But I'm just still doing kind of the overview, and then we'll get into details. So, can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so inbound program is where we track the contact us and requested demo pages that are on the website. So when somebody fills out a form that says contact us, this goes to Cassie, who works with all of our leads and lead distribution, and she qualifies them as either a prospect or an unqualified person who's not a good fit for Shopatron and passes it along. But this just tracks how effective those pages are in lead generation. List purchases is, for example, when we would purchase a list from an external vendor and import it into our database and try outreach to that specific list. We haven't done that recently, so we don't have an example, but this is kind of how it would be set up, so we can go over that. Marketing events, examples would be NRFL, which was an event held at the NRF Retail's big show in New York. The Road Show is a very complicated marketing event that we are setting up and still working through. It has a lot of different moving pieces, and marketing events aren't really set up to be cloned. A lot of times you just create them and do whatever you need to get those that outreach done. For example, we did a lot of iframes for this one, so it has a lot more in that section than for, like, say, NRFL. It just has assets and campaigns. So they're very different. The nurturing program is where we have our nurtures, and they are our way of outreaching to leads and serving them content based on their engagement and what they might be interested in. We gain as many details about the lead as possible through progressive profiling, and so we just want to know as much as we can about them so that we can give them what they actually would be interested in reading. So the client welcome program is not in place, but generic nurture is. This is the first thing that somebody would be opted into, and there are several emails that they would be served as they engage with the other ones. And you can see it through the streams. They'll be given the first email, 10 nuggets of wisdom, and then say they read that, they would move on to receiving the retail e-commerce study the next week. And it's a very elaborate way of giving content out without bombarding them with tons of email blasts. We can go over that again in more detail.
If they're receiving emails from this campaign, are they receiving emails from other campaigns at the same time, or are they only in one campaign?
Yes, they may be receiving emails from different campaigns. For example, if we had a marketing event that would be sending out an email blast regardless of the nurture, it may go over that. But there is an email limit per week, so leads will only receive a maximum of 2 emails per week. So we make it so that they can't be bombarded with 10 emails at the same time. Does that make sense? That's just something in the admin that we've put in place so that we're not over marketing to people.
Okay.
So the generic nurture has those 4 emails, and then during this phase, they're coming on and they're filling out the progressive profiling form, which we'll get into again later. But as we learn more about them, we can then segment them into either the retailer nurture or the U.S. manufacturer nurture, and that allows for them to get content specific to being a manufacturer or a retailer, because we may want to target them in different ways. And for the UK, maybe there would be something that you'd want to do differently, or different wording that you'd want to use, different content. So that's always a possibility as well.
Are those triggers set up right now? So if we find out they're U.S. manufacturer, are they going into
Yes. Yeah. So Amanda put those in place. She can probably answer more questions about her nurture specifically because she's been so involved in it. But yeah, those are running currently, these two, generic and U.S. manufacturer. Online advertising is where we house all of our PPC, pay-per-click advertisement campaigns. AdRoll is a retargeting program, but most of these, it's just a way of tracking who is engaging with our PPC ads, and then keeping track of if they're engaging further and if they're signing up for opportunities or signing up for a meeting, then we consider that an influence on their engagement.
So is this tracking the landing pages, so the target of the advertising, or is this actually managing the images used in the advertising and sending that out to AdRoll or LinkedIn or Twitter?
So this isn't doing that part. We have Jessie works with like AdRoll specifically, but she's put in place some campaign, just different smart campaigns that know based on her query strings that she uses where they're coming from. And so she uses this source in the URLs that are included in the advertisements to be able to know that they were engaging with, say, our AdRoll campaign versus our Google search campaign. Okay. But these are programs that run in the background. It's not really something that you might be involved with, but it's good to know that they exist. She is in charge of doing most of that stuff. So these kind of just run in the background. They're just tracking when people are engaging with certain initiatives. Do you have any other questions about on advertising? I don't think we'll go into too much detail.
That's okay.
Okay, cool. SEO also is something that Jessie runs, and so it's not as important to be familiar with it because it kind of just runs in the background. It's a static thing that as she needs to make adjustments, she would, but it just tracks when people are visiting our web pages as a result of search engine optimization. So if somebody is searching certain keywords and Shopatron is being one of those top hits and somebody is clicking on it, she can track that they're clicking on that versus clicking on an advertisement that's showing on this side of their screen, or if they're visiting through just going to a Facebook post. So it just kind of lets us know what channel they're engaging with us through and how they're coming to us. So it tracks the lead source as well.
Is that through a query string too?
Yes, that's the query string. And referrals, which is just a little bit more complicated, but it's sometimes you can see the referring URL, and that would tell us like if it's Google versus Yahoo versus Bing. Social media is another one of those things that's just running in the background, but it tracks when people are clicking on our social media posts that are done by Paige, our social media manager. She would post things with certain URL parameters, and it lets us know that they are clicking on the links specifically in, say, a Twitter post versus clicking on a link that's on a PPC ad. So it's just another way to know where they're coming from. Telemarketing is not really in use too much. We've done a little bit of testing based on this, but that is a challenge. With our sugar to Marketo sync, sometimes it's really hard to get the data over that we want. And so hopefully in the future when you do move to Salesforce, it would be something that's easier to track. But for now, it's just always been a challenge. A couple of different initiatives that we did with the telemarketing team is, for example, an automated email. It's not really so much telemarketing, but it would send an automated email to leads who were engaging and asking them if they would like to book a meeting or learn more. And so it was just a way of engaging and trying to be more of a human interaction versus having email blasts that are clearly to a generic audience. Trade shows, this tracks all of our different trade shows, and Ben, from the sound of it from John, he said that you'll be doing a lot more UK trade shows, so there's a folder set up for your trade shows specifically, but you can easily clone them into that folder so that you can keep track in the same manner that we would with any other trade show. Exhibiting trade shows are treated a little bit differently because we put a lot more money and effort into those. So that's just separated out. But for the most part, it just tracks the engagement of our leads through, say, email engagement versus telemarketing engagement if our sales associates are getting a hold and having good conversations with the people that are exhibiting. And it also tracks if we visit them at the show or if they book a meeting as a result of engaging with them, talking about with them the trade show specifically. Webinars is the last section in the marketing activities, and it tracks obviously our webinars program. And so as webinars are completed, people can move through the different statuses really simply with the Marketo to GoToWebinar adapter. And so it lets us know when they are registering versus when the event is actually hosted, if they're attending or not, or becoming a no-show. And then we can also target them in a different way if we know that they're there versus not going to the virtual event. We also track, once the webinar is held, we track the downloads of the PDF and the views of the webinar on demand.
So the webinar on demand, you're doing that with GoToMeeting, you're recording the live one, and then it's available on demand afterwards. Is that correct?
Yes. So we record the webinar as it's hosted live, and then we download it to the computer and then just upload it to Drupal, which is our website management system. And then from there, it's live for viewing. We upload it to YouTube and then host it on Drupal.
Do you guys ever do you ever do just on demand? I mean, pre-record it and just make it available on demand?
They may have in the past, but typically we do live webinars. I know that that's definitely a possibility, but usually we have higher attendance when people think that they're able to ask questions and engage with the speaker. So we usually just do it live and then throw it on the website after.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Whatever you want to do would be easy. The webinar is pretty simple, straightforward. So that's everything for the marketing programs, and that's just kind of a quick look at the different channels that we have operating. And then a different section is the operational programs, and these are all ones that are just kind of working in the background. They track a lot of the automation that we put into play on the Marketo side of the sync between Sugar and Marketo. So it tracks lead lifecycle, which is people moving through the models that we have set up for the sales funnel. So we can go into detail on the modeler too. I'm not sure if we'll have enough time in this kind of a segment, but I'm going to be recording all of the instructions and just making them available like as a GoToMeeting recorded, so you can always reference them for the different sections that are really important to know. The data management program kind of just runs through some of the things that have tripped up in the sync. So just knowing, for example, that sometimes the sync will bring over data that we don't want or that's not clean, so we can edit it on the Marketo side using smart campaigns. Or another good example is, for example, email deliverability. If somebody was to have an invalid email in our database because maybe we entered it from a trade show list and it was erroneous, we can reset that invalid email to false if they came onto our website and filled out a form and gave us the correct email. So that would just make it so that they're able to receive the email in the future. Does that make sense?
How does it match the leads if the emails are different in Marketo?
Because it's where you use the duplicate finder, or for example, if like a sales associate talked to somebody and said, "Oh, this is your email. Okay, this one's wrong." They can put in the correct one, and then obviously it'll sync over to Sugar correctly, or to Marketo correctly, but it will still be linked as invalid because there's no automation on the Sugar side. So Marketo will say, "Oh, the email changed. Okay, change this to valid now."
Okay.
So there's just little things in data management that when you realize little errors within Marketo or little things that we can improve processes with, you would do it within the data management.
Can I ask you a question about the icons that were used there? When I looked through earlier, What's the difference between the light bulb that's on and the light bulbs that are off, that are all over the place?
Yeah, so the light bulbs that are on are active, and so if, say, we can look at this one. So, for example, in this section, the email invalid from Marketo to Sugar. There's always 5 sections of a smart campaign, and the smart list is the trigger or the filters, and it will tell you, okay, what are we looking for? What is the smart campaign waiting to happen? And so if the data value changes and the lead field that's updated is the email invalid, and the new value is true, so it changes from false to true, then the flow is what happens to the person if that occurs on their lead record. And so it'll change their data value for the Sugar email invalid, which is a separate field. We'll change it to true. And that's just to keep it consistent. And the schedule is where you can activate it or deactivate it. So the ones that are off are the deactivated ones that are not running. So even if you have all of these flows set up between the smart list and the flow, that won't, nothing will change unless the program has been activated. And the results just shows you who's run through that flow before. So there's been 1,900 people who have had their Marketo invalid email set, and it's just triggered it to change in the Sugar email invalid field. And there's little reasons why we do things like that, but sometimes it's just something you'll notice, or like Kathy or someone on the team will notice an error that we want to have automation fixed. So that's where you set it up in data management. Any other questions about data management? It's kind of fun once you realize that you can change so many things. For example, like country. A lot of times United States can be United States, United States of America, USA, US of A. But if we want to keep data very consistent, so we can change all of those different values straight to USA as soon as we see them in the database without anybody having to manually change them. So it can do sorts of things like that. Interesting Moments is kind of a stamping system. It just it shows in the activity log of a lead specific actions that we find most valuable and most interesting. So if somebody attends a webinar, we really do care about that because that shows a high level engagement. So on those leads, they would have an interesting moment that directly links to their attended webinar. So Trishna, for example, when you look at her activity log, where it's loading right now, you can see that there are a couple different interesting moments. She attended the webinar promotional card program, and so that was a stamp, but it's just an easy way to notice little things that are very important to us.
I noticed you have one for direct mail converted there. I was thinking of using it, like if we sent them something, to just stamp them with an interesting moment.
You could, yeah.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, so set that up in interesting moment. That would definitely be something that I think sales would be interested in, to know that they did receive something directly from us in the mail.
Okay, so I set that up in interesting moments, and then I also put that in the direct mail campaign.
You wouldn't have to. So you can set up the flows to be based off of them being sent the email or being sent the mailer. So in the smart list, we'll just do this one as an example. If they, let's see, these flows are different. So if they were in the program, and the program is, and we can choose the program to be, why isn't this working? Let's try it again. You can set it up as a trigger, so added to program, is that a thing? Added to engagement program, no. Member of program. So if they are a member of the program and the program is direct mail, what did you call the line sign? Yeah. And their program status is?
These program names are from Sugar, right? Or...
I know, they're actually in Marketo. So here you can see up here, direct mail,
okay.
wine send. So it's referring the program within Marketo. And the program status is, and it would be direct mail. You can also look it up. Direct mail engagement. No, wait, what's it called?
Yeah.
Why can't I find it?
I saw it for a second.
I don't know why it's kind of out of order sometimes.
It was.
So, engaged. We just say that they engaged by maybe reaching out to us after they were sent the direct mailer, or you could do visited to say that they were sent the direct mail. Either way, it's kind of up to you on what you want to track as an interesting moment. You could do either or both. And so let's say you wanted to track as an interesting moment any time that somebody was sent a bottle of wine. Then if this is true about them, the flow would be for them to have a milestone added to their lead activity log, and it would be, you can change the name here. You could say, let's see, like, was sent bottle of wine. And if you don't really need a trigger name, this will just tell them, like, they were sent a bottle of wine on this day when they were converted or tracked as visited for the program. Does that make sense?
Yes, and then in the program I could run another smart list off of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And so then you would schedule it, and so there's 0 that would be affected right now. That is because this is a batch campaign, which is because there's no trigger here. You'll see little filters versus triggers, which, let's see if there's any triggers. Program status changed. So triggers means that it's going to run automatically. So it's something that's active. So program status is changed, and the program is WineSense. This would make it so that it's automatic. Anytime somebody was added to that program, this would happen. They would have an interesting moment added to them. And their new status is direct mail. Why is this an email blast? Oh, is that program set up as an email blast?
It's set up under direct mail.
It's under the direct mail program, but let's see. WineSense. So it's important to see that, like, the channel has to be the correct channel, or it won't have the same progression statuses.
Yeah.
So, yeah, always be careful when setting up the programs to begin with. But the main reason is because these statuses, not in programs sent, opened, clicked, engaged, unsubscribed, those are relevant to an email blast and not to a direct mail program. So that's the main reason that the channel needs to be properly aligned with.
What if you wanted to
program.
Do an email blast after you sent them something?
You could do that. You can set it. You can even set that up within this program. That's the kind of thing where it gets to be like partly your creativity of how do you want to set this up and what's the best practice. I'd say if you were going to do a follow-up email for a wine send, it'd be almost smart to just do it within the program. So like you have it here, sent wine, follow-up email, did they click the link? Did they fill out the form, which would be engaging for them. But we can talk about that program later and try to set it up so that it's a direct mailer. But again, there's lots of easy ways to digress from the training because there's just lots of little things in Marketo to know about. I'd suggest as much as possible going into the community and learning from the trainings. Ben, are you familiar at all with how their trainings are set up in here in the university?
Yeah, I looked through a little bit today. I haven't really viewed any of the materials they've got there yet.
Yeah, it can be time consuming and it's hard because you really do need to focus on the training because if you're trying to multitask and do another project, it won't sink in as much as it needs to. But there are certain ones that are most effective. Since we're probably going to have to get going fairly soon for my other webinar, I'll just give you a shout out for those things that you could probably look into on your own before we maybe meet again or before you can watch the recordings. Justin also will be getting some more in-depth training so he can answer any questions you have moving forward. But the basics one, new to Marketo, is Probably a good one. Ben, do you have an idea of what you're going to be working on or what kind of programs you're going to be setting up?
So the priorities would be to um, localize the email campaigns, the nurturing campaigns,
Okay.
and then developing or adapting white papers and case studies for Europe.
Okay. So yeah, a big, I think, part of that then would be, so we can speak to that specifically. Um, so let's say you want to have content that's specific to the UK that people can download. So would an example be if you wanted to send an email blast out about the, I don't know, Modell's video case study? If you wanted to do that but change some of the wording to be more just more applicable to the UK market, what you would just do is clone the registration page that exists in that content piece and edit it to be what you would want to be saying. So let's see, this is a registration page for that video web or video case study. So let's say you wanted to change the content here. You're like, oh, that doesn't really sound like what somebody in the UK might respond well to. So
Right.
you would just want to clone it, and that was just a right click and say clone. And you'll want to clone it to the same program. So this one, as you can see here, is called VCS 2013. You can select it, and then you're going to name this page UK registration. And all you're going to do in this, the page URL, is just changing what the URL up here would say when you are directed to that page. So you want to make it sound good. So let's do.
So we could call that uh, retailer implements delivery from store or something. I mean, it could be, it doesn't have to be a code like that, does it?
I know it doesn't, but sometimes it makes it easier to find. But let's see, what did you say? Retailer.
Just retailer deploys um, multi-channel.
And yes, so you can clone that. And then it'll show up within the program. And as you can see, it's not in that folder. So you want to pull it to the assets folder, which is where we keep any emails or landing pages or social media buttons. And so then once you have it in the program in the correct spot, you would edit the draft. And then from there, as long as you are sure you're in the UK registration page that you're editing, you can do whatever you want to the content. So you could double click here and say, no, I don't want them to say this line. I don't like it. So
So
you can,
I could strip out the US bits and
yeah,
change in-store pickup to click and collect and
yeah,
tighten
that's a
it
good
up. Yeah,
example.
okay.
So those are the kinds of edits you can make, and you can save it. And then there's no save button on landing pages or emails. All you do is click out, and then it will be saved automatically. So we
And
can go ahead.
then if this landing page was listed in the Drupal site somewhere, because I was looking through that today, um, so the Drupal in Drupal, I could change the landing page to be the UK landing page, right? And then if somebody navigates to that landing page, they're going to get the UK version.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not as familiar with Drupal, but from what I understand, there's a UK version versus a US version. So I think you would just drop this URL into the UK version versus
okay.
US. Is there segmentation like that?
Yeah, well, everything started on the US. There's lots of landing pages or links to landing pages in Marketo, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming everything, all of the UK links to Marketo are to US assets because we've only had US assets.
Yes, that's correct.
So,
So
and you need to go now, don't you? Or do you have another minute or two?
I probably have another minute or two. Yeah.
So I'm just very, very similar to what you've done now for this webinar or video case study.
Mhm.
Down in the nurture campaigns.
Mhm.
So if you were to open this up under generic nurture, just as an example, so you've got these 4 emails that are generic
Mhm.
for the generic campaign. And let's say that the 5 biggest e-commerce trends is okay for Europe mostly. Ship My Pants needs to totally change. We
Yeah.
can find a UK example. And then 10 nuggets of wisdom, maybe we edit a few of them. I'm not, just as an example,
Yeah.
and we include some European names that people would recognize. So would we clone these assets, or how does that work?
For you, I'd probably clone the entire Nurture program. So you can clone an entire program as well as assets individually. So we're going to clone it to the same folder, or you have to choose a campaign folder, and we're going to call it, or we're going to find nurturing, because we're going to put it in this nurturing folder. And we'll
Okay.
call it UK, what is it? Nurture.
Generic. Yeah.
Yeah, generic nurture. And you'll create that. So then it's cloning the engagement program. Sometimes it takes a little bit. But then all of the assets that were in the generic nurture will now be in your nurture, and you'll be able to edit them freely without affecting Amanda's campaigns that she has already set up.
Okay. And
So
then
now you have your own, and you can edit them freely. So you could come in and say, no, I don't want this. You could just delete it all together if you don't want to use Ship My Pants. But you can also just create your own emails in here as well.
okay. And then how do you get people into those campaigns, or how?
So that's a little bit more complicated. You have to determine what do you want to be a trigger for somebody to be entered into the beginning of a stream. What would you want? What qualities might make you want them to leave the stream? So that's something that's more strategic, and
Yeah.
you and John, I think, would just need to decide what makes them a good entry condition. I think for Amanda, what does she have set up? I think she just has any leads that are created. No, not anybody who is created and has certain filters on them. So like if their solution is empty and their anonymous is false, so like if they're not anonymous, if their lead score is less than 25, account type is not any of these, and you can edit them by going in here. But she doesn't want like partners or press or customer included in these engagement streams.
Yeah.
So you can just create whatever filters you want.
So
And
she doesn't have, there's no regional filter there, right? So we could potentially put in something like don't add UK people to the US list and don't add US people to a UK list, for
yeah,
example.
you could definitely do that.
Okay.
There's 2 places for country, country and lead attributes, and then billing country, which is in the company attributes. So you could
Yeah.
include both, and you could say maybe billing country is not or not contains,
Yeah.
and you
Okay.
could say UK. So that way anybody who's in the UK wouldn't be affected by her nurture program.
Right.
That's a good point. That might be something that we should talk to her about
Yeah.
today and make sure that UK members aren't being added to these generic nurtures. Because as you said, Ship My Pants isn't really a good title for the UK, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's just local, I mean, there's issues with it, yeah, for the wording, but also, nobody knows what Kmart is, or nobody cares.
Yeah,
And there's
true.
plenty of equivalents in Europe that we could probably, I'm sure we could dig up a funny video and do something very similar.
Okay,
But
cool.
but it would catch more attention here for better reasons.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think that it's a really good thing that you're going to be working on marketing and trying to, have the correct targeting for your market. It'll be
Yeah, it's
really
gonna be
great.
cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I probably need to go and set up for my webinar right now, but
Okay.
I hope that sheds a little bit of light, and Justin and I will be working a little bit more, so then any questions you have, you can direct towards him. I'll try to get some video recordings of just training up on a wiki page so that you can access them whenever you need to.
Okay.
But hopefully I'll have
W
enough time to set all those up.
would you be available briefly tomorrow morning if I had some questions? If I look at it tomorrow during the day and come up with some more questions?
Yeah, sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just suggest doing as much of the basic introductory videos. They're mostly available on demand. And once you register for them, they'll show up in My Learning. So that's something
Okay.
I used to be like, where did they go? But they'll show up in your learning courses, and these are the ones, and you can see like how far you've gone. Did you finish all your videos? And you can play all of them. So
Cool.
it's just a good way to keep track of what you need to get more insight into.
Good luck on your webinar. What's the topic?
Thank you. It's actually just a demo for people who were cold meetings booked by the sales associates. So instead of putting them through to a business development manager, we have multiple people coming into one demo that's held by Kristen Meal. So it's kind of a little test project for the sales associates. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but definitely reach out and we can set something up to go over any questions you have tomorrow too.
Okay, perfect.
All right, thanks for your time. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.